and I realized, I said, this is the difference in a lot of people's lives. Some people are always standing on the shore seeing sharks. Other people have the courage to pursue their dreams deep in their heart and take those extra steps.
Welcome to the Unstoppables, the place, the station where you learn how to move forward in spite of adversity. And you learn from those people who don't just talk about it, they live it. They live it every day. They've overcome something in their lives. They are now overcoming something in their lives that would hold or stop most people. It doesn't stop them. They're unstoppable. In the history of this show, and we've done myriad shows with Navy SEALs to people in positions of power in large companies, but I've never had a person on my show where I had a question, where do I start? There is so much to my guest today. His name is Dan Nitro. Clark, welcome to the Unstoppables.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Bill.
Sometimes when we talk about or talk with guests in the green room, we spend 30, 45 minutes of the best stuff, the seminal stuff, and we talk about it, and we never get to the good stuff on the air. And we could have spent another hour. We had about 45 minutes. I could have.
Flattery will get you everywhere. Let me just start by saying that. Flattery will get you everywhere.
I taught Kelsey.
I'm open. Lunch, dinner, I'm available.
Let's jump in on this, because I used to watch this show, and I thought, if I could only do that, if I look like that, and if I could do that, I could be that. Couldn't be, but you were on the Gladiators.
Yeah, American Gladiators, and that was the exact appeal of the American Gladiators, even though it's become this kind of cult pop kind of iconic show. I mean, there's not a day that goes by when I'm walking in public clothed and someone doesn't come up to me and say, dude, aren't you that guy, Nitro? So it's really stuck around, but that was the exact appeal. It gave the weekend warrior a chance to show their mettle, their goods, what they had, and go against these unstoppable athletes.
Thanks for the plug.
Yeah, unstoppable athletes, gladiators.
Dan, give me some background. Tell me where you grew up. Tell me what you did.
Well, I'm from the hood.
Background. You're from the hood?
I'm from behind the orange curtain. Orange curtain. So the people who aren't in, so you have two distinct universes here in Southern California. You have Orange County, and then you have Los Angeles. The people who live in Los Angeles call the people who live in Orange County people who are behind the orange curtain, because it's only 60 miles apart, but it's a completely different lifestyle. I remember when I was going to high school here in Orange County, I went to Saddleback High School and then Santa Ana Junior College. And the first time, I went away to San Jose State on a football scholarship, but then when I came back and was living in Orange County, I remember a buddy was like, let's go to L.A. So I went up to L.A. one day, and we went to Chin Chin's on Sunset, and I remember, these people, they're so different. They all wear black. and down here in Orange County, they're plaid and pink. Well, you know what? You're a difference maker. You're a disruptor, and you wear black. But see,
keep flattering me.
The plaid suit is the big difference maker.
Well, Nitro.
You can call me Dan. We're good friends now.
Oh, man, I thought Nitro was the name. So
you can call me Nitro, too, if you want. A quick thing about the name, at the time, the Nitro mania was going on. It was crazy. And I remember my own mother, I would call her, and I would say, hi, Mom, it's Dan. And she would be like, who? Mom, it's Nitro. Oh, son, how are you? So you can actually call me whoever you want.
It's your own mom, too.
Yeah, my own mom.
People talk about adversity. It's always relative. They say, we had this failure in business, or we had this failure. But when it comes to your health, those failures sometimes are fatal. Tell me about your harrowing experience. It's 2013, your true wake-up call. What happened?
So in 2013, at 49 years old, I had a heart attack. And, for me, who's someone who's always identified themselves by what they could do with their body, it was more than a setback. It, I would say, shattered the entire definition of who I was. Because always the healthy, fit guy, the professional football player, the American Gladiator. So, it really shattered who I was, and I really had to rebuild myself based upon different principles. So firstly, when you get punched in the face like that, like life did to me, I had to say, why did this happen to me? And that's what I was stuck doing in the hospital the first few days. I literally was lying there saying, why me, why me? I did everything right. I took all the right supplements. I trained like a beast. I'm the last guy who was supposed to have a heart attack. And while I was in the hospital, though, I promised myself one thing. I promised myself I wouldn't be that grown man feeling sorry for himself, crying in the hospital. I just wasn't going to let that happen. But then the strangest thing happened is, as I was laying there saying, why me, why me? I reached up and I felt my face, and there's this bud of moisture. And I was this guy, exactly who I didn't want to be. I was crying in the hospital, feeling sorry for myself. And then I had this epiphany, because I literally wept until I had no more tears. And I had this epiphany that came through to me in the quiet. And it was, instead of asking myself, why me? I changed what we call the locus of control, and I asked myself a different question. I said, instead of why me, I asked, what can I be given the circumstances? And as soon as I changed that question, all these new answers, thoughts, and ideas came pouring forward. So given the circumstances, I'm a 49-year-old who had a heart attack. Well, what can I be? Well, I can be maybe an example of someone who can come back from something and strive. I can be an example of how good life could be after a heart attack. I could be an example of how to have optimism and positivity even though you've had a heart attack. So I changed that question, and then I did that, and I started to move forward in a different way. But I also wanted to reevaluate my life. I think failure, which I would say a heart attack is a failure of the body, failure, just like success, leaves clues. Mm-hmm. So I said, okay, why did this happen to me? And I went into the physical stuff, what was wrong with my diet, what was wrong with any supplements I was taking. But I also went into the spiritual side. What causes heart attacks? And when I saw the doctor, he was like, well, it's just a mystery to me. For people like you who are super healthy, you didn't have a closing of the arteries, which most people think, heart attacks are like, hey, you got so much plaque in your heart, the artery gets smaller and smaller and blood stops going into your heart, right? That's not what I had. 50% of the heart attacks are what we call from plaque ruptures. Now, plaque ruptures are when the endothelium, which is the artery, the lining of the artery inside that go to your heart, instead of the plaque calcifying and getting hard and narrowing the artery, what happens is the plaque is soft, and you actually get like a little pimple of plaque. And what happens is that little pimple of plaque ruptures. And when it ruptures, the plaque goes downstream. If it's a large piece, it causes a stroke, right? But what causes the heart attack in my case was a process called thrombosis. It's your body's clotting factors rushing to the place where you had the plaque rupture to stop the bleeding, so to speak. And these clotting factors, which are supposed to save your life, actually come and they fill up the artery, and they keep the blood going from your heart, and you have a heart attack. So I had to try to understand that, and the doctors were not giving me any clues. They just said, hey, take these 5 pills, go home, and keep doing what you're doing. Yeah, you're looking stunned, but that's medicine sometimes today. It's really tricky. We've known about this for 50 years, Bill, but we don't know what to do, Nitro. And I was like, don't call me Nitro, doctor. How dare you? So I did a deep dive and did a lot of research on it, what a plaque rupture was, and the causes, and like the new cardiology. And since we're not a medical show, I won't go into all that. But I also went into what causes stress, what causes anxiety, and it was eye-opening for me, because I always looked at myself as someone who had no anxiety, who had no stress. And the truth was, I just became really good and had a lot of tools in my toolbox, to overcome that stress and anxiety. So I rebuilt my life based upon 3 to 4 years of research, where I interviewed people about happiness. I read papers. I did a deep dive on meditation, religion, to say, what creates a happy, fulfilled, meaningful life. And I do my best every day to try to live up to that, be the best man I can be.
While you're one of the reasons, and there's a myriad reasons why you're unstoppable, is you're able to reinvent yourself. You see, a lot of people can't reinvent. And maybe it's just maybe you extrapolated another part of
Bill,
yourself.
I just have to interrupt you. I still wear my spandex on occasion.
You still do?
Is this on occasion,
You should have dressed for the part.
if a girl's really hot,
dress the part.
or if a guy's really hot, I wear the spandex. On occasion, I do.
why didn't we dress the part? Why didn't we do this? Why are we sitting here all
Well,
four?
since you asked.
There you go. Just in case. I was ready for that. But the ability to reinvent, to actually look inside and to say, hey, there's got to be something. What's the spiritual aspect of this? And the question you asked, a great question, what can I be? That's a great takeaway question for the audience, because instead of saying, woe is me,
Why me? Yeah.
And wallowing in that self-inflicted wound of misery while you're lying in the hospital, you're asking, what can I be? And that's a whole total mind shift that has that whole change with the physical, that opens the door to the physical, that enables you to be even more emotional, don't cry, but even more emotional than you were before, probably has changed the whole person of who you are. Something you said in the green room, I'm going to throw it back at you because I thought it was brilliant, and I thought it has application for me. And if it has application for me, I'm going to say it, okay? Because we're all self-serving in this way. You talked about man, this hit home. The early days of muscle, and you want to look a certain way, and you got to feel that power, and you're the one that gives out the stress. You ain't taking in the stress. You are that. You identify with the physical. That's all, and you're talking about sex. You're talking about everything that you can get your hands on and ingest, maybe digest, if not just move on. That's called gratification. But what you learned during this experience was gratitude. Tell me the difference between gratification and gratitude and how it changed your life.
Yeah. So when I was for most of my adult life, and I think a lot of us are programmed that way, we chase success, and usually the trappings of success are the external manifestations of acquired goods, right? The house, the certain car. Yeah, I remember all my life, man. When I was a young kid, I was 15 years old. I had this picture of this car. It was a Cabriolet Porsche, right? And I'd look at it on my wall, and I would say, one day, man, I'm going to get that car. And I went to college. I went to San Jose State. I brought that poster, framed, put it on my wall, and I would look at there, one day I'm going to get that car. And when I get that car, man, am I going to be happy? Well, got that car. And the first time I drove it, Mulholland Boulevard, cruising along, top down. Man, I got to tell you how good that felt. It felt unbelievable. I was actually driving the car, like laughing, because I was so happy. Right. But after about 6 months, my dream car became just a car. And I had that same thing happen over and over in my life. I had set all these markers for happiness. When I get this, I'll be happy. Okay, so when I get this big house in the hills, 7 bedrooms, 7 baths, 6,500 square feet, man, am I going to be happy? Yeah. And then I got that house, and I still wasn't 100% happy. When I get on TV, I'll be happy. I was on TV for 7-8 years. I was a cover of TV Guide. I was in People Magazine, Tonight Show. But there was still something that was missing. And what I realized, I was putting my happiness on external things. And I didn't know how to create happiness within myself. And that was, to go back to your question, is because I was chasing gratification. I was chasing things that I could eat, I could taste, I could buy to fill spaces inside of me, you could say, were as large as Texas. But I wasn't aware of that. I wasn't aware that I couldn't create bulletproof happiness by what I achieved and what I did. So that's what gratification is. And it wasn't until after the heart attack when I started practicing gratitude, the art of being grateful for things, and appreciation, did I start to get a taste of what happiness was and happiness is. And I firmly believe now, at 54 years old, that gratitude and appreciation are the gateway to happiness. And it's a practice that I've implemented into my life. I've since stripped down a lot of my life. I stripped down, I got rid of a lot of stuff, but I filled myself up with more. And the interesting thing is, the lighter I am and the more I fill myself up, the happier I am. I can go anywhere,
right?
And I can be a simple man. I can go to sit on a mountaintop with nothing, and I'm so freaking happy. And I'm happy every single day. And those are, some of the tools that I've developed, over my lifetime that I've, like I said, I put it in this toolbox. And that's what the next book is going to be about.
Let's talk about the first book. And here it is. F, Dying. And this book is well written. And
well, it's going to be
by you.
Dying.
It's written by you.
And then say F. Somehow I got talked into doing F, Dying, with a little cool thing. But because I remember I tried to get on a morning talk show when I was talking to a producer up there. And she's like, sorry, you can't. We can't get you. We can have you on. You're the title of your book. So I said, oh, okay. Let me go back to cover design. F dying. So now, like, my girlfriend has a 7-year-old son. He goes, "What's the title of your book?" F dying for forget dying.
Yeah,
because it's not for me. Because I'm unstoppable.
This is the Nitro in you, though. How cheating death kicked my ass into loving, learning, and living my best life. And like I said, it's well written because you wrote it. So you have the pride of authorship there. And there's a part here I'm going to get to.
This is like Russian roulette. He opens it to a part and he assassinates me.
If you want a refresher course, I'll give you your own book to read. So I do the same thing. It's like, what are the 7 secrets of this? I don't know. Give me a hint on what 4 is, and I'll figure out what 5 is.
Right.
One of the things that we have a hard time doing before you can evolve as you have and to be able to move forward is to forgive. We have a hard time forgiving ourselves, and we have to forgive ourselves before we can forgive others. Tell me, because you have a brilliant piece in here, and I'm going to test you on this. What is forgiveness, and how do we forgive? Just in case.
Well, I like to tell things, a story, because I think that's how we understand it. It's a truthful story. So I remember a buddy of mine was dying of cancer in the hospital, a guy I played football with. And we hadn't gotten along in years. And he asked me to come and see him. And I went and saw him, and he was surprised that I came because a lot of people didn't come. And as we were talking, he through short breaths said to me, I'm glad you came. And he goes, there's a lot of things I have in my heart that have held me back. And one of them is my inability to forgive. And it's a dark place. And, before my time comes, because he was stage 4, he said, I want to relieve that. And then we started talking, and the odd thing was we couldn't remember what the falling out was about. We played football together. Was it about money I borrowed, he borrowed? Was it about girls? We didn't remember. But what we did remember were 2 things. One is that there was a darkness and a resentment that we carried with us unnecessarily. But I think a lot of times, and this is going to veer off in a different way, is because men, we don't have the proper tools to resolve disputes or to resolve differences. We don't have the reconciliation skills, right? What guys do, we either say,
punch it out.
Yeah, we punch it out. That was the old way. We talked with our fist. Or we just said, okay, the guy's dead to me. Yeah. Someone crossed us. We didn't have conflict resolution skills. Hey, cool, the mafia, he's dead to me. And for him, he carried that resentment and anger for a long time. And I remember I said, dude, man, I love you. I forgive you, whatever it was. And I hope you forgive me. And after that, he kind of like squeezed my hand and closed his eyes and, let a big sigh of relief. And I just sat there, kind of holding his hand. And, I just remember I was weeping. I don't know why. I get emotional thinking about it, but I don't know why. But it was just that moment that, we carry so much anger and resentment towards people that it keeps our hearts dark. Mm-hmm. And I was glad that I was able to spend that moment with him, before he passed. He passed a few days later in the hospital. The trick, I think, is not in never having conflict, because we're going to always have conflict. But it's in resolving the conflict as soon as you can.
Yes.
Forgiveness is the decision to move forward and let go of the bitterness. It doesn't mean you're forgiving the person for hurting you. It just means you're not holding on to the darkness anymore in your heart. When you let go of that, I think it brings a sense of peace and comfort. I'm not a Buddhist, but I'm half Japanese, and for a big part of my life, I was following Zen philosophies. And, one of the parameters or basic thoughts of Buddhisms or practices is that we all suffer because of attachment right. to how we want things to be instead of how they are. And I think forgiveness has to do that. But when you allow yourself to forgive, you let yourself free.
Fascinating.
Let yourself go free.
One of the best, if not the best, definitions of forgiveness, because so many people confuse it with, I can't forget about what this person's done. So they still can't forgive the person, but to relieve and to open that heart from the darkness and let the light in,
yes.
just to be lighter
yes.
as a being.
Yes.
That I think is the key.
Yeah, I'll read it to you. It says, when you let go, you allow yourself to be free. You allow yourself to come out of the prison of anger and resentment and step into the sunshine of life. Don't waste time trying to get even. It doesn't work. Drop the past and work on loving yourself now.
Did you ever hear about that book, The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari? That's what you remind me of.
It just came on my radar by Robin Shar.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just came on my radar. Should I get it?
Yeah. Oh, well, I think you're living it. You're talking about attachments. You're talking about that. And I think this individual was on Wall Street, had a heart attack, decided, I'm changing all this stuff. I'm going to get off this hedonic treadmill I'm on. I'm going to get off this trying to keep up with the Nitros of the world. And I'm going to, and you got to, and it's been a bestseller for a long time. I think you'd enjoy it.
Bill, it's so hard because, today in our culture, we put so much emphasis on what we have instead of who we are.
Absolutely.
We put so much emphasis on our to-do lists, but we forget about our to-be lists.
Yes.
And after the heart attack, that was a big shift. Let me think, instead of what do I have to do, I said, who do I want to be when I do these things? Do you know what I mean? And that's made a huge shift. And a lot of my thing has been getting past the attachment of things. But, it's a really hard balance. Mm-hmm. It's a hard balance to go out in our life with ambition and the desire to achieve, because look, I like nice things. Like everybody else, I like nice things, but how do we go out on this path of achievement and still keep in touch with meaning in our lives?
Yes.
And that's the riddle. Because we all know people who have tons of shit, financial things, who aren't happy. I mean, you look at Robin Williams, a guy, we look at Robin Williams, the guy had everything.
Yeah.
He had everything, but he didn't, what I call calm the beast. He didn't face the beast. That beast is anxiety.
Right.
That beast manifests as stress. And Jim Carrey, I think, said it best. Jim Carrey said, I wish everybody could have all the money and the fame they wanted, so they wouldn't know that's not the not the answer. But then the question is, what is the answer? You've done very well in business. Obviously, I'm sitting in this great frickin' office and, in this huge building, and there's tons of people. This place is bigger than my new house. Your offices are. But so to you, what is the balance for you between achievement, success, and inner peace and happiness, and how do you find that?
The question that I have is, why did it take us so long? Because around the same age and stage, 49, I was in Cabo San Lucas. I was with clients. And the secret that has to be held very tightly within these walls is you don't talk about what we have with clients. You don't talk about your excess. You don't talk about the things that they're paying for, right, through their money that you own. And one of my clients said, why do you own 2 of those Italian cars? My response was, I must have been really unhappy.
Oh, that's funny.
It completely diffused it, and he started to laugh. I started to laugh. But it took me so long to understand that I used to tie myself to the external. How do you look? What do you do? How successful
you look like crap now. This guy's like in great shape.
I don't know.
So we're both in great shape. We're both in great shape. Yeah,
we're like mirrors.
We're both saying this. Are we still stuck? That's the question.
But I am very introspective, and I think you're very introspective. But I'm able to apply what I then perceive. And I saw the unhappiness and the futility in chasing things and thinking that, it's a zero-sum game. I'm never going to have more money than Warren Buffett. I'm never going to have, but what I can do is to live my best life now. And to do that, losing attachments. And I went to Australia, spent about a month, and just looked inside, read a lot of Buddhist philosophy. I'm not a Buddhist, but read about that, and then changed a lot of my life by decluttering it. And I can tell you this is the happiest I've ever been, because I don't give a shit about the material. Do I like great things, nice things? Yeah, absolutely. But do they own me? No. No.
But how do you find that balance?
How do you find it?
Yeah, how do you find that balance?
You have to recognize that there's an imbalance at first. So I think that so many people associate who they are with what they do. You talked about doing and being. So what are they doing? Who recognizes you? Hey, you're that guy. You're the guy that drives that. You're the guy that lives there. You are the guy, or were the guy that was this, and now look at you. You're great. But you associate that, and you have this sort of imbalance that you think is a balance because you think that makes you happy. It doesn't. And when you learn, when those things are taken away, or your health is at risk, or you have a health issue, you give away all the Ferraris, all the Porsches, all the houses just to have it back.
Well, I'll tell you this, and this was
a roundabout way to get into your question.
Yeah, this was the keystone thing, the Nitro habit, whatever you want to call it, that just shook me at my core. So I remember the night I was in the hospital of the heart attack, and I wasn't sure if I was going to live or die. His doctor said, okay, my heart, blah, blah, you've had a heart, you had this chest pain for 3 hours. We don't know what's wrong. We have to bring you to surgery. And I remember sitting there, and only one thing was important to me at that time. I didn't care how many cars I had. I didn't care how much money I had. I didn't care about the plaques on my wall. I only wanted the people I loved close to me, and I wanted them to know how much I love them. So if you can see the end before your actual end, you get the answers to the test before the test. And those were my answers. I wanted the people I loved close to me, and I wanted them to know how much I love them. When you know that's what's important to you, man, does it make life easier going forward. So now as I rebuilt my life, I keep that one principle, and I live my life that way. Whenever I have a chance to see my family, I've got 11 nieces and nephews down here in Orange County. Whenever I have a chance to see my son, who just finished law school and he's now practicing law. Whenever I have a chance to see one of my 3 sisters down here. Whenever I had a chance to see my mother who passed this year, I would run at it. Because I knew at the core, for me, and it's different for everybody, at my core, that was the most important thing to me.
I always said, Dan, is there's not two separate spheres of life. There's not business over here and there's life over here. It's just life. It's all one and the same. And how you actually live your life, to me, I've had that choice. Like you said about the answers in the test, I can look forward and look at object lessons of people who are dying at the wheel at 80 years old, and I can say, I don't want to be that. Now, what do I have to do so I don't become that? And those things are eye-openers from awareness. First, you have to be aware. You're very aware. And then you have to have the courage, the fortitude to change it. And I think those are the key things that I bring to the table and what I've done and what I try to mentor and teach. It's not about me, it's about other people. And it really, I live that. Having said that, you are raising the bar on the Unstoppables. You're taking this to a next level. So right now, we're taking a commercial break. Got to pay for these expensive walls. It's Bill Woodich on the Unstoppables with Dan Nitro Clark. We're back with Dan Nitro Clark. Fuck dying, right?
That's me.
There he is. This is the cameo right there. Off air, some of the best stuff pops up again. I'll tell you, like a popcorn machine with ideas, and I love these ideas because they actually taste good. So let's digest.
You know what's interesting? I learned about myself. I've become very, very good at having experiences, processing them, and then bringing them out as a toolbox to teach.
Yes.
I experience, I share, and I hope to inspire. And it's something that's. You know what I mean? It's an interesting thing.
I relate to you.
I've discovered.
This book you wrote, which I give you tremendous credit for, and the next one you're going to write, we're going to get into that. But first, there's 2 pieces of this book that caught my eye, along with forgiveness. So there's 3 things. Tell me about upstream reciprocity.
So upstream reciprocity is a scientific term from a simple practice that I learned from the Dalai Lama. When I say I learned, I'm not saying I sat next to him, but it was a quote I heard him say. And what the Dalai Lama said, he said, in each opportunity, each human experience, we have the opportunity to either lift a person up and make them happier or not. And if you think about the profundity of that statement, weighed against how many people you interact with each day, and each time you have interaction, whether it's with the fabulous, is it Kelsey? Or the fabulous
Luva,
each time you interact with that person, you have a conscious choice to lift that person up or not. Now, where upstream reciprocity comes into play is if you make that choice to consciously lift that person up, most likely, according to upstream reciprocity and the studies they've done, that person will go do the same to somebody else. So it creates this ripple effect of positivity. And how this looks and works in real life. Let's say you're at home and you empower your kids. You lift your kids up, right? You tell them something and they feel empowered. They feel great. They will go to school and lift their friends up. Their friends will then lift their other friends up. And like I said, it creates this whole powerful ripple effect of happiness and positivity, I think, in a world right now with this political climate and everything that's going on, that we need it. So every day I go out and I make it a list on my to-be list to be positive and uplifting to somebody, to lift one person up a day. Because I know that with the scientific practice of upstream reciprocity, it can make a difference in the world.
You know, when I'm on stage, and I learned this through time, they don't remember what you said, not so much. They don't remember what you did, not so much. But they do remember this, how you made them feel. And that's really what you're talking about, that contagion that comes from making a conscious choice. Because I do say, my friend, you have a high degree of awareness. I have a conscious choice to either bring them up, there's no neutral, or bring somebody down. And I think that's a life lesson along with the next one.
And it's simple. Let me just say, so what does this look like? And we'll go about, what does it look like? It's, you see someone in a hurry at the grocery store. You let them go in front of you. Yeah. You see someone having trouble. I get this a lot. You probably do because we're a little taller. Mm-hmm. You see someone having a trouble reaching up for something. You're like, hey, let me get that for you.
Sure.
You're on the airplane. A man or a woman's having trouble lifting their bags, and we're big, strong guys. We help them lift their bag up.
Sure.
It's letting someone get in front of you in traffic because they're in a hurry. So all these little things we can do. It's opening the door.
Even
for
like
someone.
Opening doors, right?
Yeah,
right.
We said that. Jinx.
Same thing.
We said it at the same time.
Exactly.
Jinx.
No.
No, we have to do the pinky swear. Come on, the pinky swear because we did it. Now we're forever. I know you're kind of cool to do a pinky swear. He's like,
it's the first one.
I made you uncomfortable.
Yeah, reminded me of a girl from Canada that made me do that once, but that didn't work out.
Oh boy.
So now we're going to talk about what's scary. Let's talk about this. I wrote a book on fear, and I wrote a book.
Tell me, is your book coming out? Is it out? Can I get it somewhere? Or?
You're going to get it. I'm going to send it to you.
Okay. Is it available in stores right now?
Well, it'll be available at the end of the first quarter next year.
But you look like a guy who's not afraid of shit. I'm sorry.
I'm afraid of you right now.
I use the bad
word. No. Do what scares you. You got a great story and analogy for people about doing what scares you.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest things that holds us back is fear, right? Fear of what people will say, fear of how we'll look, fear of failure. And I remember when I was in Hawaii, was it 7 years ago, and I was at Lanai, and Lanai has basically two hotels. One hotel is up above, I think it's called Halupa Bay, where it overlooks the bay. And I get up early because I work out early. That's just what I do. I've always done that. And also it's great to work off jet lag. So I'm up there in this hotel gym running in the morning. It's like 6 a.m. And the sun is just coming up. As I'm running on the treadmill looking down at the bay below, I see all these fins in the water. And my first thing is, oh shit, it's sharks. Because I was scared to sharks since Jaws. It ruined me. And I have all these rules. I don't swim by myself. I don't swim in the early morning or late at night. When sharks feed, I don't wear bright colors. So I look out there and I see sharks. But I talked to the guy, Russell, this big Hawaiian bear of a guy, who, is a typical Hawaiian, ukulele. I don't mean to be a racist or anything, but this guy was Don Ho, and I said to him, I said, what are those? Are those sharks out there? And he says, no. We have the largest population of spinner dolphin in the world here. And he goes, they're in the bay. It's a gift from the gods. He said, you should go down there and swim with them. And I'm like, really? Are you sure they're not sharks? He's like, no, they're dolphins, bruh. I'm like, okay. So I'm going to go. You got me fired up. So I had the courage to think, okay, I'm going to do this. So I get off the treadmill and I start to walk down there. But before I left, I asked him, I said, hey, Russell, I said, have you ever done it? He's like, no. And I'm like, why? And he says, because I'm scared. And I was like, oh, so maybe they are sharks. So I said, there's no way I'm doing this. So I get back on the treadmill. I start running. But then I've got this, as I'm running, I have this feeling inside, that burning feeling like, look, man, you talk about living a certain kind of life. You talk about having the courage to pursue the dreams deep in your heart. And swimming with dolphins is something I always wanted to do. So I calmed those voices and I got off the treadmill and I strutted down to the beach. And again, it's still kind of gray out.
In your bright colors.
In my bright colors. And it wasn't spandex. Maybe it was. But there's only one. The girls are laughing, thinking about seeing me in spandex. It used to not be that horrible of a thought.
You can't unwind the visual.
Yeah, it used to be like girls would like to see me in spandex. Now it's like, you're 54. Ooh, gross. Anyway, so I go down to the beach, and there's one person on the beach, and it's a woman who's working there, and she's got one of those little spears picking up trash. She was like, 65 years old. And I announced to her, I said, hey, look, I'm going down there, and I'm swimming with the dolphins. She's like, you should. It's a gift from the gods. They don't come very often. So I'm like, I'm doing it. But there's something in me, and I just had to ask her. And I said, have you done it? And She says, no, I'm afraid. And I was like, oh, shit. And I said, maybe there are sharks out there. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't go out there. So I stood on the shore and I look out there, and 50 yards out, there's these fins. And I said, okay, I'm going to bet these are dolphins. So I get in the water and I start swimming. And like you said, I realize that I have these bright colors on. Mm-hmm. And I also realize that I'm breaking all my rules about sharks since I saw Jaws. Don't swim in the water alone. Don't swim in the water in the morning. Don't swim in the water at night. Do not wear bright colors. So I'm breaking all these rules to go out there for some unknown reason, because I have this yearning in my heart to go do this. So I get out there and I swim 50 yards and I look around. No dolphins. I said, okay, maybe they're out further. So I get out there, another 50 yards. I look around, and and they're like another 50 yards out. So now I swim out there. I'm 150 yards from shore, nobody around, and nobody to hear me scream, if there are sharks. So I'm starting to panic, and I'm thinking, this is a bad frickin' idea on Nitro. And when I get scared, I call myself Nitro because it gives me more courage. So I'm just about to head back in when I feel something brush against my leg. And I'm like, oh no, it's a shark. So I take a big breath of courage, and if something's going to eat me, I want to go underwater. I want to see.
And you're going back to Jaws, aren't you?
Yes, I'm going back to Jaws. I'm dun, 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 dun. Dun, dun, dun. So I take a breath in, I pull the goggles down, and I go underwater. And what I see, breathtaking, something that I will never forget. There were a school of dolphins swimming in a circle around me, about 20 dolphins, swimming in this circle around me. It was like a beautiful orchestrated dance. And every once in a while, like it was a game to them, one of these dolphins would shoot right by me, and I'd reach out to touch it, and it would move just far enough to stay away from my fingertips. And it was really one of the seminal, breathtaking spiritual experiences I've ever had in my life to this day. So when I got done, stayed out there as long as I could. I swam back to shore, and I looked back out at the water from shore, and I realized, I said, this is the difference in a lot of people's lives. Some people are always standing on the shore seeing sharks. Other people have the courage to pursue their dreams deep in their heart and take those extra steps. Now, for the woman on the beach and for Russell, did I go much further than them? No. I went 50 yards further than them. I went 100 yards further. And because I was willing to risk, I'm not saying swim with sharks, but because I was willing to risk and face one of my lifelong fears, I got rewarded with something that will always be there deep in my heart. So the takeaway is, you have to have the courage to follow and pursue the dreams in your heart. And usually it's not as far as we think. We feel like they're so far away, I can never get there. Yeah. But they're usually just a little bit past, I want to give up, right?
And the key is, don't wear neon spandex, right?
Yes, don't wear it.
You got balls to take a deep breath and go down and take a look at what's around you. I got to give you that one right there.
Well, I didn't know it was coming at me.
You wanted to see.
I wanted to see.
Fuck it. This is the end. I want to see what it is.
Yeah,
right?
It's going to bite my leg off.
Is it a tiger? Is it a great white? I don't know.
It's weird how that experience happens to us. I had back surgery recently. I was in a car accident maybe 18 months ago, and I just couldn't get my lower back right. And I was having more FU bad pain days, and I couldn't live the athletic life that I wanted. So I had a 3-level lower back reconstruction. It was 16 weeks ago. And a side effect of that surgery was I ended up getting 3 blood clots in my calf, and I ended up getting 2 blood clots in my lung, which are called pulmonary embolisms. And I have these right now. And that was an odd thing, because I went back to the heart attack time when I was in the hospital. So I go try to make a long story short. I know I talk a hell of a lot. So my foot was swollen after surgery, just a little bit. I mean, just a tiny bit. My right leg after surgery, like a month later, I noticed it. I go, my foot's kind of swollen. I mean, not like I said to my girlfriend, is my foot swollen? She's like, I don't know. Well, maybe a little bit. So she says, call your doctor. And I'm a dude, so I'm tough. I'm not calling my world famous back surgeon over a slightly swollen foot. And she's like, call your doctor. I'm like, oh God. And I learned, with people in my life, just sometimes, diffuse and just give in. Okay, it's easier to make the phone call. I make the phone call, tell my world famous back surgeon, Razuli, up at Cedars. I say, hey, My foot's swollen just a little bit. He's like, go to the hospital. Go to the emergency room right away. I'm like, what? And he goes, you probably nothing, just as a precaution for blood clots. I'm like, no, I'm not going to the emergency room. it's a swollen foot. And he kept on me. I said, okay, here, I'll make you a deal. I'll go tomorrow and I'll go to scanner place, where they do ultrasounds. So I go the next day. And yeah, I have 3 blood clots in my legs. One's loose. She goes, go to the emergency room. I rush to the emergency room. They bring me in. One's loose. We have to admit you. They start putting heparin and all this stuff. And part of the admittance, they did a chest scan. And they said to me, oh, by the way, you have a mass in your lungs. It's 2 inches long, big. It's 2 inches big. You have a 2-inch mass in your lungs. We think you may have cancer. I'm like, oh my God. So I'm panicked. I'm worried. I'm scared. And I didn't sleep the first night in the hospital because I didn't know what it was, and I was afraid of what it might be. And then I went back and took everything I'd learned from the heart attack experience, and I put on my headphones and I listened to a guided visualization that meditated that helped me release attachment, and I made a decision. And I'm not even sure why I'm telling you the story, but I need to. And I made a decision that no matter what happens to me in the hospital, no matter if this is cancer, if it's not cancer, I'm going to be optimistic. I'm going to have a positive attitude. I'm going to handle this with an open heart and still try to practice upstream reciprocity and lift people up. And that was another time that it was a huge, huge shift for me in my behavior, a time where I was lost, a time I was scared, a time I was anxiety-ridden, where I went into the toolbox, pulled something out, made a positive change in my life by making the decision so I could have happiness and success in my life. So I guess the reason I bring this up, because you're asking me about my third book that's coming up. And my third book, I think the working title is going to be Face the Beast or Calm the Beast, right? Because what the beast to me is, it's anxiety. And as we both know, as I know, I've always seen myself as someone who has no anxiety, right? I'm usually the calm in the center of the storm. But what I realized is that I have had a lifelong practice that started at a very young age, where I created coping mechanisms and strategies to calm that beast, to calm the anxiety, because I realized that anxiety, that fear, that beast was the number one thing standing in my way and tens of millions of other people's way that keeps them from having happiness and success in their life. Did I just say something?
It's going to be a bestseller.
Did I just say something,
yeah,
people?
It's going to be a bestseller. It's on the way.
Well, like you were talking about with your book, Fear. I mean, I look at you and I say, this guy isn't scared of anything. There's no fear there. But what I also have to realize that you probably had tons of fear and still have it, but you've become a master of kicking fear's ass every day, so you, in the same sense, can succeed and find happiness.
True.
Is that right?
True. You should just take the show over right now. This is the Dan Nitro Clark Show, sponsored by Bill Woodage. In soggy Irvine, we're getting a freaking rainy day in Southern California, and you're in here bringing sunshine to the audience. Man, that makes me laugh. Tell me what's next for you besides you're going to write a best-selling book on anxiety. What's next for you?
Well, you know what? Let me go back and say it. To me, it's, the best-selling is one of those monikers that you hope for and that you want. But, for me, like in this last book, I just let go of the attachment. And I think that's a lesson for a lot of people, because we have these things we want, we desire, but what we all do is it causes us tons of anxiety because we want to control it. All we can do each and every day is put our best foot forward. So when it comes to writing a book, I can write the best book I can. I can hire the best team I can. I can, do all the publicity, the best I can. But at the end of the day, I'm not in control of the market.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's where I have to let go and find peace, right? So I don't, that's how I face that beast. That's how I defeat that beast.
And that's huge. That's huge. In the stage today where if you don't get enough Instagram likes, all of a sudden you're contemplating suicide. I mean, that's what we've become That's what we're becoming. Here's the thing I said is interesting to the publisher. We want to do the cover this way. And I said, I'm not married to the cover. I'm married to the content. All I can do is the best I can do with the content. How it's received outside is how it's received outside. But I'm not married to how it looks. I'm married to what I've done. That's me. I own it. But how it does and what it does, I can only influence that. I can't control it.
Yeah, and I think as a younger man, I wanted to try to write a book for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I want the girls to like it. I want the boys. I want the kids. I want the teens. I want the men's. I want the religious. I want the non-religious. I want the Republicans. I want the Democrats. Right. And there's that saying, you write for everybody, you hit nobody. So,
yeah, absolutely.
But I know as a human being, I know the things that I struggle with. If I'm authentic and I'm deeply personable about it, because it is part of the human experience, it will find and help the people that it's supposed to.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I truly believe in that. You believe
you
it.
will collect your audience. You will attract. Yes. You will attract your audience. You're right.
You build it, they will come.
You try to be all things to all people. You end up being no one and to anyone. I mean, you just end up. You're not there for yourself. So you got to be true to yourself at all times. Like you said, authentic, and you're in alignment with your core. You're in alignment with your principles.
Yes.
To me, that's one of the ways of happiness.
And how do you get in alignment with your cores and principles?
Chiropractor. How do I get?
Seriously, how do you?
Okay, it's think, say, and do. When you're in alignment with your thoughts,
right,
and your thoughts, and then you're thinking, and then you're taking action on that stuff. So I'm thinking, I'm becoming that, and I'm staying in concert with who I am, and not trying to digress into who other people want me to be.
Think, say, and do.
Think, say, do. So your word has to be aligned with your thoughts. Your actions have to be aligned with your thoughts and your words. You've got to be consistent down the road with who Dan is. The way you've spoken with me, man, you're straight up alignment. Ain't no bullshit, ain't no fluff, ain't no I think I want to be this, no pretense, no hiding. This is what it is. And I see myself warts and all for what it is, and I come this way. So you're not going to catch me being out of alignment with what I think, what I say, and what I do.
So I like that. I only have one question. How do you know what to think?
You don't. The thoughts just come to you. It's how you take the thoughts and sanitize the thoughts, and how you glean the thoughts, and how you clean out the shit that naturally comes to you as a human. As a human, you're wired to have your fears. How you dealt with your fears in the hospital bed, now that makes the difference, because you've sanitized, you've boxed, you've changed the dynamic, you've changed the narrative on your own life. You did it when you were in the hospital, and now you live that today. That's the way I read you.
You think, say, and do.
Think, say, do.
Yeah, I think sometimes I get stuck on, I think a lot of people may get stuck on, is they don't know how to think the thoughts to get them to who they want to be and where they want to be. You know what I mean? Because most people, a lot of our thoughts that we think, our self-talk that we have to ourselves isn't positive, right? Right? So how do we, as you say, sanitize those thoughts? How do we have more positive self-talk? How do we lift ourselves up? What are the tools we have in our lives that help us bridge that gap between errant thoughts so we think the sanitized thoughts? And I don't have the answer, but that's something I'm really interested in exploring.
You love analogies, and I'll give you one. When you're on TV, and they clip that thing and they say, cut, as soon as that stuff starts to seep in, cut. And change that dynamic to a conscious thought, because most of our thoughts are those unconscious things that seep up.
Give me an example besides on TV, like example of a person today. They're thinking X, Y, and Z.
I don't know, man.
I can't do this.
Okay, it's raining outside. I don't know if I get in my car, I just could get in an accident. If I get in an accident, I'm going to. Oh my God, I'm going to probably ruin my jacket if I'm not killed. And stop. What's the reality? Get out in your car, drive safe. Let's go. So I'm not going to take this narrative all the way down to a road to this terrible, terrible worst case.
You nip it in the bud. You nip the negative thoughts in the bud.
Boom. That's it. It's easier said than done.
It's a skill.
It's a practice skill. It's a practice skill.
That you get confidence in as you're able to do it more and more as you can.
What do you call it? A toolbox?
A toolbox. It's a skill.
Get in your toolbox.
What is confidence? Confidence is a skill that you learn from past successes.
Absolutely.
And whatever it is.
Absolutely.
So when you can start to nip that negative thought in the bud, right? Is that what you're saying? You start to nip that negative thought in the bud, you get better and better at it. And then pretty soon you don't let those negative thoughts even germinate or grow. But I think the hard thing is teaching people how to nip those thoughts in the bud. You know what I mean? And I think sure we're alike in that we both have this knowledge, that maybe from different places, and we both have a tremendous desire to help people, to be in service. But the challenging thing is getting people to have enough activation energy to take action. And then once they take action one time, to create a habit loop where they don't have to consciously think about it and they can stay compliant.
Yes.
That is the hardest thing.
Let's talk about habit just for a second. There's a cue. What do I want to look like? What do I want to become? What do I want? There's a habit that makes this cue become reality, and then you have the reward because you look like this, you think like this, you have this discipline that comes from this loop of cue, habit, and reward. And I think if you can get people to tie into the cue and the reward, they'll start taking on the habits. And it's small. It's like an Ethiopian proverb. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Don't try to take the whole fucking world on. One small step at a time. Most of us are overwhelmed by that tsunami of ideas and things that we think we have to become right now. Mm-hmm. Right now, we have to take those first steps. And the first step is awareness, nipping things in the bud like we talked about, think, say, do, and take the small steps toward habit. That's how you become, and you stay with it through discipline.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying 100%, because it's a lot of times what stops people is the gap from where they are now to where they are, where they want to be. It's an ocean.
Big time.
I've never written a book in my life, but I want to write a book.
Right.
It seems overwhelming and daunting, and I agree with you 100%.
Put down the first word.
Put down the first word. First thing is, but I even think before that.
Yeah.
I think there's a primer before put down the first word. The first thing is, okay, if you're going to write, have a computer.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
And even there's another theory that says 2 minutes. Do something for 2 minutes. So even if you're not going to write, for the first week, just show up at your computer like you're going to write for 2 minutes. I mean, it's longer than we want.
No.
We would take.
And what you're talking about, there's a book by Stephen Pressfield called The War of Art.
Fantastic book.
Resistance
Fantastic
wins.
book.
If you don't sit your ass down in that seat at this time, whether you want to write or not, or whatever you want to do in life, you got to have the discipline to sit there and do it, because resistance wins. Resistance is a manifestation of fear. It's uncertainty.
Anxiety.
That's what anxiety, which is your next book that you're not in love with the title, but that's what you're going to write.
Well, again, for a lot of people, like, if they're listening out here, how do I start something that I want to achieve that seems like climbing Mount Everest? Yeah. It's easy to say the first step, but a lot of times it's harder to identify that first step.
Absolutely.
And what a cue may be for you is, if you want, let's say you want to write a book, is just to show up in front of the computer for 2 minutes.
Yes.
Create that habit of being a writer by showing up for 2 minutes, even if you don't write. And eventually you'll get that cue of showing up. And then eventually you say, okay, you give yourself, I'm going to write, for 20 minutes today, good or bad. So that's just an idea of
I'm going to give you 2 things you're going to love. You take these away. I think you live these. I think you'll understand it and appreciate it. Most people know what they fear, but they really don't know what they want. So when you're out there changing lives, you'll find out people will say, but how do I know I don't know what my purpose is. I don't really know what I want, but they always sure as shit know what they fear. And a French philosopher once said that man's biggest fear is to be alone in a room with his thoughts. Think about it. That's where all the negativity seeps in. You're alone. You're in a room. Here comes the negative stuff. How do I pay the rent? What do I do? What do I do? And that's one of man's biggest fear. But unless you can do that and be alone and face your demons and look into the abyss, you better see character reflecting back. You better see that will, that habit, that want to, that awareness. It better start reflecting back, or you got nothing, my friend.
I like what you're saying.
You don't love it, though.
I like what you're saying.
You don't love it. It's like peanut butter and jelly sandwich. You don't like that either.
No, I love the quote, and I agree 100%. I think, one of the fundamental practices of my life is meditation. And meditation has so many different faces. So when I was young, when I was this freshman kid here at Ocean View High School, I got cut from the football team. I was this fat, lonely, isolated little kid, right? By chance, and we talked about by chance, my father had an office space, and at night he rented the office space out to someone who was a hypnotist. Not like the show hypnotist, but practiced hypnosis. And we went skiing together, and he told me something fundamentally that changed my life that I use to this day, even though it's been refined. He said to me that, talked about the power of mind, the power of being under hypnosis, and he said people who are under hypnosis, like if you take a pen and you tell them it's hot, a writing pen, it will create a little mark on their finger. And he says your mind cannot tell the difference between something you vividly imagine and something that's real. And now they've actually been able to take it steps further, where they've done brain scans of people, imagine this versus really experience, and in the same neural pathways fire. So I took that information that he gave me, and he hypnotized me once, and it was really about visualization. He told me to read a book. It was called Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. It was one of the first positive psychology books.
Great book.
Great book. And what that had you do, it had you relax your body, put yourself in an open state, and visualize the success that you wanted in your life. And at that time, I'd never had a success. I was a kid whose older brother died in his arms when I was 10 and he was 12. He got electrocuted, he died in my arms. I was a kid whose father was an alcoholic, so I never had success in my life. The first success I had in my life was what I saw in my own mind. That year after I got cut from the football team, I met this guy. I started rehearsing that success over and over again. And for me, at that time, I just wanted to have success playing football. I vividly imagined myself sacking the quarterback. I played defense. My the fans cheering, the smell of the grass, my mom, her face, oh my God, this is my son. I imagined that over and over again, continued to put in the physical work with it. And from 1 year, I went from too fat to play, getting cut, to the next year, I came back and I was the MVP of the team. She said, oh shit over there.
I love your story.
No, I cannot tell you what a fundamental difference that made in my life. I get emotional thinking about it because it changed my life, and I practiced it every day, and that's how I got a scholarship out of Santa Ana Junior College. That's how I played for a top 20 Division I school. That's how I got to the NFL. I visualized it all. But I found somewhere in my mid-20s that the acquiring of things, like we talked about, I'm on TV, I'm all this didn't create bulletproof happiness. I said, there has to be an adjustment, a refinement, because this visualizing of success and getting it isn't making me happy because I didn't deal with that empty void inside. I put the happiness outside of myself. That's when my visualization turned to meditation. That's when I did exactly what you said. I started studying books on, Zen philosophy. I started studying Siddhartha. I started, reading everything I could. I didn't get to the French guys because I'm half Asian. I felt a calling more towards the Asian philosophies. And I started practicing meditation. And that provided me with great relief. But it wasn't until the last few years that I truly understand meditation. It was like, okay, how do I quiet my thoughts? I know I'm supposed to sit down here. I know I'm supposed to do this and, okay, breathe and sit in the lotus position. Oh, my frickin' back hurts. And I always did meditation because it was something I thought I was supposed to do, but I didn't understand it. And then this last couple of years, due to science and this deep dive I did, I said, oh, what meditation is about, it's about getting beyond the analytical mind and slowing down your brain waves so you can get to the operating system. And you can create a neural pathway from your conscious mind down to your subconscious mind so you can do a lot of the good work, but also your body and your brain waves can be in harmony.
And you start that neural pathway, you can make a new one. So people can develop those. There's a plasticity to conscious to it, to the
Absolutely.
brain. And you can actually start the new one. That's some great stuff right there.
I want to talk one more sec. Do we have another minute to talk about
this?
this?
I want you to give the audience a wrap up on the final paragraph on what you want to say.
I want to give
and then we'll have you out for part 2.
I want to give a quick wrap up on meditation because, like a light went on. So when we're in a conscious state, we're in what we call beta brainwaves. And there's 3 levels of beta. There's low beta, which is kind of relaxed, easy. There's medium beta, which is kind of like when right now. And then there's high beta, which is when you're full of anxiety, stress, and tension, right? High beta is what happens when a predator comes after you, and that's something that's biologically in us.
Fight, flight, freeze.
The sympathetic nervous system, right? So the whole
only calmed down by the parasympathetic nervous system.
Exactly.
Because you're a fighter.
Yeah, exactly.
Go ahead.
So the sympathetic nervous system is what God gave us, what our Creator gave us to help us in times of extreme stress. When we're out in the jungle, we're hunting, and there's a saber-toothed tiger. The challenge today is we still have that same stress and anxiety through our thoughts, right? And so we're in high beta all the time. And we weren't, as a species, any species, we're not programmed to be in this extreme stress,
right.
high beta. So what meditation does, it slows down your brain waves and it takes you down to alpha, theta, delta, gamma, the slower brain waves. So when you do that, you get back into the operating system. So I said, oh, I can look at this in a scientific way, which is the gateway to spirituality, right? I can put a scanner on my head and, oh shit, I'm in beta right now. I'm in high beta. Okay, how do I bring that down? What are the benefits, not only spiritually, but physiologically? And so the whole idea behind meditation opened up through science is I'm trying to slow my brain waves down. I'm trying to be in heart, body, and mind coherence. When I'm in heart, body, and mind coherence, I'm operating well. So my whole life is I probably meditate a minimum of an hour a day. I mean, like people, oh my God, I don't have an hour. But I said, no, this is my new non-negotiable. That is the basis to everything I do. And my whole goal in my spiritual life is to try to take that meditative state I get where I'm in touch with, we talked about earlier, the quantum field, the higher consciousness, God, the universal intelligence, where I'm in touch there, man, and I feel whole, I feel no need. My whole goal is to take that state and try to keep it throughout my regular and whole life. Does that make sense?
It makes complete sense, and he has blown up the unstoppables. He's Dan Nitro Clark. His first book is Dying. The next one could be something around anxiety, I think, but we want him back. This is a show you can't miss. Watch it again. There's so much seminal brilliance here, my friend. You've been phenomenal. Fantastic.
Good times.
My new friend, Dan Nitro Clark.